Okay, so the past 2 weeks or so, I've been getting some messages from friends who I haven't talked to in a long time, and even a coworker recently called me up just to verify the story, even though I thought I explained it before. Um, but this video, going away from my drone videos and away from skydiving or tunnel flight, I wanted to get into my experience with being struck by lightning. Now, I haven't seen a lot of videos out there of um, people's personal experiences aside from being interviewed on the news or something like that. Uh, but I kind of wanted to discuss what I feel is my long-term effects or immediate effects of when I was struck by lightning. I'll tell the story of what all happened. I'll lead up to it, but I kind of mostly want to make this about how I feel things have been going over the past 18 years since my lightning strike. So getting into the story, it was August 15th, 2002. Obviously a day I will never forget. And I used to work out at the international airport out here as an airline refueler. And anytime a storm would come in, if lightning was within 10 miles of the airport, they shut the airport down for 15 minutes. If you were at 14 minutes 59 seconds and lightning struck again, another 15 minutes gets added back onto the clock. Our fuel system was all piped underground, pressurized piping system. So when we fuel an airplane, we'd hook our truck up to the hydrant pit, and the fuel would get filtered through the truck and then go into the airplane. And so it was really important that we shut the fuel system down once lightning was close by. It happened to be in the morning, and a random pop-up storm came about, and lightning started striking pretty close to the airport rather quickly. I had just finished fueling a flight, and I was driving back to our main break room, and I saw a lightning bolt strike by our fuel farm, which is where they hold a lot of the fuel above ground in these big, massive containers. And when I saw that, I kind of immediately rushed to try to get in to tell them, like, hey, we need to shut the fuel system down. So I park my truck and I start to run into our break room. And as I'm running in, I feel the hair on my arm stand up and immediately thought, oh shit. But before I could even finish that thought, it felt like I got punched in the head harder than I've ever felt any kind of knock on the head before. I did black out. I didn't fall to the ground. I don't know how long I blacked out for. I came to, and basically my body felt like I had done 24 hours straight of a full body workout. Muscles were sore as could be, just stiff, was hazy in my thought, and I didn't have any burns, but I do remember thinking, like, oh my god, I just got struck by lightning. And I started to walk back into our break room, still kind of in a haze, still sore as could be from muscles and everything else like that. And I approach my supervisor and I tell him, like, I think I was just struck by lightning. And of course he didn't believe me. No way, no way. And I was like, no, I'm serious. I think I was hit. I don't feel good at all. And luckily, another refueler, a coworker of mine, witnessed it happen from his fueling truck as he too was starting to drive in and get ready to park. And so he was able to tell the supervisor, yes, Tanner got struck by lightning. And then they started to believe what was going on. A little side note too is some of our trucks were gasoline, to be able to drive, and the others were diesel. But we had a gasoline fuel pump to fill up our trucks, and the fuel vent that comes out of the ground, that actually was on fire as well. So clearly something was nearby to ignite the fumes coming out of that fuel vent. Anyways, so the ambulance was called. They came and they did an EKG scan, and that was all sorts of messed up, as you can imagine. So they took me to the hospital for observation, and my company was not able to get a hold of my mom, so they were able to get a hold of my cousin. And my cousin tried calling my mom and then told her, like, hey, you need to go to the hospital. Tanner got struck by lightning. Of course, she didn't believe it. After some back and forth, he basically was like, why would I be calling you, if it wasn't true? So she ended up coming. But I did stay in the hospital for 24 hours. The EKG started to settle back down to normal. And so I was released. And yes, I did go buy a lottery ticket that day, and unfortunately I did not win the millions of dollars. But anyway, so that's kind of the main story. Now, everything else is what I kind of feel is important, because I kind of want to document it, and if there's other people out there who have been struck by lightning, I kind of want their feedback on what after effects they may have felt or have noticed since that day of being struck by lightning. Now, right away there was a few things that I had probably as far as after effects. My sleep pattern immediately was messed up. It was almost to the hour that I would fall asleep for about an hour and I'd be awake and I couldn't fall asleep again. And about an hour later I'd fall asleep, but then I'd be right back awake an hour later. And this hour pattern of sleeping went for about 2-3 months. And I actually went in to a sleep specialist and kind of told them the story too, that what happened. And they kind of thought maybe it was some other stuff, so they did do a sleep study test on me, which if you've ever done a sleep study test, they have wires hooked up to you everywhere. I don't get how someone can sleep with 1,000 different things attached to their head into their body. But I did manage to sleep a little bit during it. And the only thing that they really kind of came up with was some sort of sleep disorder. And at the time, they prescribed me a medication called Provigil, which I think a lot of people have heard about, and it was massively abused for a while. But that actually did work for me. And I tried to continue to use it once my prescription ran out, but they didn't want to renew it just because there was a lot of issues with people abusing it, and I don't know their logic behind why, if it was working for me, they weren't allowing me to continue. But that was one of the things, was the sleep pattern was really messed up, and it kind of continued on. The other thing too is immediately after being struck by lightning, I'd go to bed and it would feel like someone was shaking the bed, and this would happen quite frequently. And the person who I was dating at the time, I kept asking, like, why do you keep moving? Why do you keep fidgeting? And either they'd be asleep or they'd be like, I'm not. And this has continued still to this day. It's not as bad or as frequent, but again, for about the first year, every time I'd first lay down, it almost was like a buzzing feeling, shake the bed type feeling, just this kind of random motion, like someone's going up to the bed and trying to push it constantly. And I felt that throughout my whole entire body. Side note to go back to as well, I didn't have any burns, no marks or no nothing like that. I did read online, about 90% of people who are struck by lightning survive it. And then there's a certain percent of that, I think it's like 70% of those people don't show any burns or marks. I can't remember, I looked it up about 18 years ago, but there was none of that. So that was the next thing, like the shaking of the bed and the shaking of the body, and the constant movement feeling at night, that slowly started to subside. But like I said, it still goes to this day. Restless limb syndrome has been crazy since that point. It's hard for me to sit around for longer than probably about 10 minutes. You know, if I go to a movie theater, I'm constantly moving in the seat because I just can't get comfortable. When I'm at home, I have to get up and move around a lot. That really hasn't seemed to subside that much over the last 18 years. It's just, I feel always fidgety. I always feel like I need to be doing something, and it wasn't as prevalent, or I didn't notice it prior to the lightning strike. That is one thing I can say for sure, and it especially affects my sleep. Aside from the whole like shaking of the bed thing that is far less frequent now, the restless limb syndrome still kicks in hardcore. I have to sleep with a body pillow. If my knees are touching, it drives me absolutely nuts. It's hard to get relaxed and stay still. Like I said, I'm constantly moving around, constantly getting up, getting down. I have to be doing something. Next to that would be, now, this part I can't really explain, and this is why I kind of wanted to create this video, to see other people's experience as well. For the first 3 to 4 years, it could be perfectly clear outside. I would not have looked at the weather or seen what's going on, but I would start to get really stiff neck, which then would start to go down to my lower back, and then a really bad migraine. Once the migraine started to kick in, it usually was, there was a storm about to be overhead that had a lot of lightning in it. And again, it sounds very crazy, and I don't know how to explain it. I don't know what could be brought about by it. That I started to notice a pattern that when my neck started to get really stiff and start to go into my lower back, I would joke and say, oh, there must be a really bad storm, you know, about 300 miles away is what I would say would be the average, because then all of a sudden I would go on the radar and be able to see that there was a storm about 300 miles away. And it was so strange, and a lot of coworkers did not believe me, and I'd say something, and then we'd look at the radar, and there would be something. It'd even be times where, you know, everyone would look at the radar before work would start, and nothing would be on it. And then all of a sudden, as the day went on, and I'd start to feel this, you'd go back on, and you'd see that a storm started to develop. And if it was a really bad electrical storm, that's when the migraines would set in. That's when it would almost like be debilitating, where I couldn't think, I couldn't talk. It was hard for me to perform tasks, and that has subsided as well. Aside from migraines, I do notice that they don't happen with storms now, but I do continue to have migraines, and I have gone to the doctor for this. For a while that they were saying, oh, it's probably depression, and they prescribed me an antidepressant, which I usually do not like taking prescription drugs, but I tried it because the migraines are so bad, and the antidepressants didn't work. So to me, it was something more the depression, and bluntly speaking, I didn't feel depressed at the time either. Then they prescribed me a anti-migraine medication, and I can't remember what it's called. And they gave me a really weak version, and I got a migraine, I popped one, didn't seem to do anything. So they gave me a stronger version of it, and when I had a migraine once, I popped it, and it didn't do anything. So I can't say, you know, why it didn't work, but it just didn't work for me. So eventually they did an MRI, and this is where I get a little bit upset with the healthcare system sometimes. Is I went in for the MRI, I come out, I meet up with the doctor, and he says that he noticed two areas that showed scarring on my brain. And I asked, well, where, or what can it affect? And he's like, oh, it's nothing to worry about. And that's all he would really say. I didn't dig too hard into it, but there's a part of me where I want to go back. This was probably about 5 years ago, but I do want to go back and ask, where is the scarring on the brain? Because if it happens to be right here, then I can 100% say that yes, that is from my lightning strike from 2002. The only other area I could possibly think of is over here from when I had a bad car accident afterwards and knocked my head. But again, some of the effects that were going on, and this is primarily where a lot of my migraines and my headaches stem from. It usually is right in this area. Now, I do get sinus headaches. I have really bad allergies, but I know the difference between those. Those a lot of times will stem here, and sometimes will even stem a little bit from the back of my neck and then radiate up. I know my sinus headaches to a T. This is not a sinus headache. So that's where I get a little bit frustrated with the healthcare system. I was trying to figure out what, like if that's something that could be an explanation as to why some of the migraines are coming in. The other thing too that was reported was an added heartbeat. They noticed that when they were doing the EKG, and it's still there today. I believe they said that they had no record of me having an irregular heartbeat or an added heartbeat prior to that. I had 2 hernia surgeries and an appendectomy prior to the lightning strike, and never once did anyone ever say anything about an extra heartbeat. So I would assume that maybe that came about from the lightning strike. Again, discussing anything and everything that I've noticed afterwards, just to kind of help other people, again, because you don't hear about long-term effects. There's no way to prove long-term effects of lightning. You can't say, yes, that is 100% from the lightning strike that you had. The last thing I've noticed is the left side of my face almost seems like I had a stroke. It seems like this side is a little bit more lazy and a bit weaker than the right side of my face. And I didn't notice it immediately, or at least I didn't pay attention to it, but as the years have gone on, it's become more and more significant that once I point it out, people usually notice it right away, and they kind of continue to notice it afterwards. So that's another thing that for me seems to have come about since the whole lightning strike. Why it would be the left side of the face, I'm not sure. Maybe if it's because I'm hit on the right side and the left side of the brain affects that, or the right side of the brain affects the left side. I don't know the science behind it, so I'm just throwing that out there. I would love to hear other stories from people who have been struck by lightning. If there's someone who comes across this video, please put in the comments your experiences and what things you might have felt long term. If it's fairly recent, tell me what things you've noticed right away is a difference. If it is something that was 20 years ago, let me know what you think might be something going on with you that you feel stems from that lightning strike a long time ago. Now, there's always the ongoing joke, once you're struck by lightning, be careful, you might be struck again. That could be true. Usually, statistically, if you are struck by lightning, you have already put yourself in a situation to statistically be more struck by lightning. So again, me working out at the airport, I work outside, get struck by lightning. If I continue to work at the airport, yes, my chances of being struck by lightning are still high, but so is everyone else there. So no, I have not been struck by lightning a second time, although the past 3 people who have reached out to me have asked, you know, again, were you the person that I remember working with who got struck by lightning twice? My coworker was. I heard he got struck by lightning twice, and it's like, no, I haven't been struck by lightning twice. It was only once, but now it kind of frightens me. Why is everyone saying? Why is everyone saying twice? Like, do I have to watch out again? That's another thing. I had an immense fear of lightning, as you can imagine, for the first several years after being struck. And it would be to the point of where I needed to be in the center of the room, away from any outlets, lights completely black, you know, like turn everything off, sit in the center of the room, away from outlets. That's what my fear brought me to for the first year. After the first year, it wasn't extreme. I started to getting into taking photography of lightning. It was kind of my way of distracting myself from the lightning. I was so focused on the camera and the time settings and all that other stuff that I actually have some really amazing photos of lightning. If possible, maybe I'll add them in at the end of this video, or maybe snippet them in throughout the video if I can figure out how to edit. I'm still trying to work on my editing processes. That's why I was kind of doing some of those drone videos and the skydiving videos, was to get a rhythm and figure out the software. But yeah, so I definitely was afraid of it. Now I'm kind of like how I was as a kid and as an adolescent. Storm comes and I want to be outside. I want to see it again. I want to watch the lightning. I do make sure to be in a certain area where I'm not going to be struck, but I love to be viewing it and I love to be out there. And I think taking the photos kind of helped a lot. So there definitely was a very strong fear afterwards that I kind of tried to force myself to get over. There was one other thing I think I wanted to say about it, but I think this video is already getting long enough. Again, anyone who has ever been struck by lightning, if you find this video, please let me know your experiences, what you went through. Did you show burns? Did you not show burns? Did you feel you needed to be hospitalized afterwards? What do you feel your effects are? Anyways, I hope you all enjoy this video. If anything, maybe get a little bit of insight into my life, or a little bit of insight into what it's like being struck by lightning. Like I said, for me, it felt like I just was punched extremely hard on the top of my head. And again, I would suggest, if you start feeling the hair on your arms stand up, in my experience, it was already too late. So if you feel that hair on your arm stand up, the hair on your head, the hair on your legs, whatever it is, I would say be ready to feel the fury of nature. I've had a little guy sitting here with me the entire time. I'm going to have him say hi. Say hello. This is Gizzy, my Pomeranian. Maybe I'll kind of premiere some of my other boys as I do other videos. Anyways, I hope you all have a great day. Bye.